Hi, it's been quite a long time since my last stream, and I'm gonna continue with the same stuff about this website concept that I have about visualizing existential risk, and I think like my focus has shifted a little bit from like visualization to somehow like presentation in general. Maybe I've gotten this idea that it might be like it's quite important, I think, to maybe show the math a little bit better and have a little bit less focus in the UI on these graphs, and to have a greater focus on these inputs, which are also outputs at the same time. So I'm gonna get to what I mean here soon. So I've been moving these. Let's see if I can show them here actually. Like I have here these graphs. Let's see. So I had these graphs here that show the results with x-axis showing the time, and I think I will still keep them in the site, but they would be like lower on the site. So you would have to scroll down for them, and I still like the idea that that they have these time periods that they show that they're gonna like connect to these inputs up there. But in the end, I think like these might be more. And I think like one more issue with the graphs is that like they don't or it's quite difficult maybe to get them to update automatically, so that because they're gonna they will it's quite heavy to draw the graph, so it's hard to make those like quick. If you like want to instantly see like what's the effect of the change you make, it's not gonna happen. It's gonna be a little bit slower. So we're talking about several seconds, which is kind of like it's a little bit too much. So yeah, that's also like why I think it could be like a good idea to have like a little bit less focus on the graphs. And maybe one other thing is that like I also want to add these population variables by default and have many of these that I have in white here, these outcome variables, and I think that's a little bit so that those are all gonna take up a lot of space, so and that makes it hard to have quite like on the main view, or like when the user first gets into the site, it's hard to show all of that stuff at the same time. Yeah, and here up here, I was thinking like could have to have some kind of tutorial which kind of like shows the equations on how these variables link, and yeah. So right now I'm thinking that I would want to, and I think I had them at some point before, to have like some kind of indicators for the time. I wonder if I had them down here actually, but because I think I remember that I have done them at some point, so they could be over here somewhere. Okay, yeah, here they are. Or at least it's like one of those, like there might be different kinds of these. So I want to move this up here. And what that means is that we're gonna move everything down a little bit. And let's see, where did I have it? Here. So I'm thinking like I could have this thing up here. Like, would it be good here, and would it be better like kind of like upside down, so that those, I think in this case it would be better to have it upside down. So let's see if I actually had that somewhere, or have I removed it. And I don't think it's gonna be too much of a hassle to do it, so let's just make a copy of this, and I'm gonna hide the original, and I'm gonna, let's see if I can play around with this a little bit. So I'm just gonna move all of this stuff down. Like this. And then I would have like this one here, this one in here. So these are now like different years. There's some kind of weird. These are not like correct values now. This is just for kind of like, and I think I also want to take this. So I'm gonna try to move all of this stuff at once. So like this. And so it would be like up here, and then I think I would just like want to have a little bit better somehow like distinction from this tutorial, although I think if the tutorial is in this kind of box maybe it helps already, but or maybe I could have like some kind of text up here in the left about like this beast being like some kind of time scale indicator or something like that. So I think for now I'm gonna fix these so that they are, so this is like 10 years. This will be 100 years. That's actually correct. 1,000 years. Then we have 10,000 years. So there's some this is here. Okay. So now I think this should be maybe like arrows or something. So there should be maybe like an arrowhead indicating. So the arrowhead kind of like links to, or the end of the arrow kind of like links to the, okay, this has been like 10 years now. No, it's a little bit tricky. Or maybe have this text always like to the right hand side of this, so it yeah, maybe it's fine. Yeah, I'm gonna look at the more of this big picture stuff on the inputs, and I think like if you don't have to, because I think sometime before I was a little bit worried about I wanted to keep everything like all of these inputs kind of like very condensed so that they wouldn't like take too much like vertical space. So I'm gonna put some more volume here. So I wonder if this is now too loud or if this is like better. I think I tune up the sound a little bit. And I think like one other reason why I kind of like want to focus less on the graphics is I don't know, maybe I wasn't like too happy with any of the kind of like or I think I'm gonna be like somewhat happy, but it's just not like I think I couldn't get like the impression that it's really helping it to be like more approachable. maybe, I don't know, or I don't know, especially with all the, well, I think it can still do that, and in some sense it would be like maybe preferable if kind of like the user would first look at the graphs and then like then like focus on the just on this like input stuff, but then after they kind of like understand better what this interface is about. But I don't know, it's a little bit tricky balance, and I think like maybe this kind of like tutorial section up there is gonna help also, and yeah, and maybe like one thing that I want to focus is that I can like have the hint in here now that I've been thinking lately is this kind of like comparisons to previous values, because I had this idea that like maybe the main message of the site is to show that even if you make like quite small, if you could help to achieve like small changes in these survival probabilities or extinction risks, that it would like that would be like very significant in terms of expected value or like expected benefits, and that's why I also want to have this some kind of like population measures. I want to highlight them, and because that makes it more approachable, more easily understandable than the percentages might be, or this kind of like, I don't know, expected probability of being alive or expected like survival rates. Yeah, but the other thing is that like to indicate this kind of like benefits of small probability changes is if I have like the previous values, or you indicate the change to the previous values. So what I'm thinking here is that if I have if the user like changes, it's kind of like the second to last decimal up like by one, whatever points these are, it would kind of like show here, show kind of like why like what's the change that you have, what's the last change that you have made, and then it would show how all kind of like these downstream variables or inputs would change also compared to that previous value, and so it would then show like through this expected population, and here like if you have this cumulative expected human lives or expected human life years, so it would change, it would kind of like more easily show what is the effect of this like one click to do this, like because there's gonna be a lot of variables changing when you like if you change here like in the top left spot something, it's going to change all of the values here in the next row, and it's going to change all of the values here in the expected population row as well. And so with all of that kind of like a lot of changes happening, I think it might be, especially if there's like even a little bit of lag in the system, it might be hard to keep track of those. Or it's kind of like easier to kind of like see that they don't have to, especially because there's so many kind of like decimals and so many kind of like numbers here, so the user doesn't have to remember like what was the previous value. I think like one tricky thing here is that it could be like good to have an option for the user to have how do you say it, because now if I have like it so that it always shows the difference to previous value, because of how this is built, like if the control is through these buttons, then it's gonna change all the time. But it would be good to have like some kind of like for the user to possibility to set this kind of like intermediate points. So like if I have here like 99.0, so when they change to 99.1, they don't maybe want to see that. They want to see like what's the difference between 99.0 and 99.9%. So it would have to be able to like create this kind of like a, I don't know, like this kind of like save point or something that it compares. So it only compares once you click something or something like that. I don't know. It's also like maybe it could be like good to have these some kind of these like change indicators as an optional so like and I'm like wondering if it's good to have them on by default or not. So let's have a bit more look at this UI here. So I think like I kind of like want to have it easy to for the user to see how these different variables, how do they connect to each other, and what kind of values are the product of what other values. But and to some extent it's kind of like handled through up here, but I would also like to have some kind of arrows going around here. And so let's see where I have those. Yeah, here, like I think it's easy with those if you have just like a connection between two variables that are gonna like those top two variables, I think that's quite easy. But here I'm trying to like figure out if I have this population. I'm gonna clean this up a little bit first, because there's all of this stuff that doesn't really. So here, take out this one. Yeah, like some things that I also been like playing around here is that should there be like especially for this population, like what's the growth rate between like these two spots here, like if we have like by 2035 and then we have like 2025 or 2026, which is kind of like the starting point, and then like if then the user has to like figure out like, well, okay, what's the population in year like 20, what is that, like 2125 or 3025. I think that would be a lot easier to do maybe if the UI showed these growth rates. So because we are dealing now with like different time scales, so it gets quite difficult to think about like what would be the kind of like the correct population there. I'm also a little bit like maybe a little bit struggling with this, because this population inputs, because it's it could get like I would like to have the opportunity to have like it could get like very large, but then it's gonna take a lot of space, especially if I want to keep. On the other hand, because I want to keep this very as a like very accurate, because I want to indicate like the expected changes of very small like population or this like survival. I want to indicate the population changes, expected population changes of very small changes in survival probability. And for very small probability changes, the expected population changes are small. So if I don't have like enough decimals, then it's not gonna show the change. And well, up here I was thinking that it would be nice if I have this kind of like indicator for change, that it would kind of like connect to the decimals and placements of the actual variable here. But with this case, if I have here, like now I have the smallest decimal is kind of like it's like 1 million people, or you have to have like a change in population or expected population of at least 1 million people for this to be, for the change to be visible. And I think that's that's like way too much for those small changes. So, but then again, like it's not like if you're setting up here, it kind of like works up here. If we're going to like we have this variable of population if survived, but it's not. It doesn't really work for this expected population at different. So so I'm kind of like thinking now that should I kind of like have it, because I have here in the bottom I have this cumulative expected outcomes, and I have like a smaller font there, and that makes it easier to kind of like do these small changes, or I can have like more decimals. So I would kind of like, on the other hand, it would be like very nice to have this expected population in kind of like same fonts, same decimals as this population input in case of survival, because then it's kind of like easier to make the connection and see like what's the effect of the choices, but or like effect of these different survival probabilities in general. But I wonder if the preciseness is like more important here. So and I also think that it's gonna be this kind of like a number of, I don't think it's, I think there's a better word than okay, yeah, maybe like a word is kind of like significant digits, or yeah, like how many significant digits, I don't know, or how many, I don't know. So then if I have like very like a lot of these significant digits, and because I kind of like I have to, then because I have like a lot more smaller font here, but I also here I'm thinking now that are these numbers, is this gonna be like enough, like is there gonna be enough space here? And let's see, like if I have, gonna make a, that's like billions and millions, and like that would be, that's how much space it would take to and this not sure about like how like now we would be in this kind of like precise level here. I think that's not too bad actually. So let's see if we have this. I'm like thinking like how many digits can we have for them to fit here like side by side, especially with all these cumulative outcomes. Like if we have like something like this where we have and I could of course like make the choice at some numbers that like if it go like I think I could quite well like have like a here like okay I could have like 9 trillion humans, and so that could be like 9 trillion lived life here. So I think that would be here like when we have like a 1,000 year from now. So actually I didn't. Okay, I have here like now what's I don't remember like what's after. Is it like quadrillion? So yeah, so here would be like 9 quadrillion. So it would be like 1, 2, 3. So it would be like here. So so if you have two of these side by side, I'm like checking like can they fit. Yeah, I think they could fit quite okay actually. And I think that's kind of like the that would be kind of like the largest number that we could get. And then it would be kind of like make sense to have, and it would be like nice to have in some sense for people to have all these, to show them all these digits, because I think it could somehow like better indicate like the scale of these things. So now if we have here something like, and we could have like we could have like these parentheses here. So let's say we have this kind of like increase. So it would show up like that. And we would make it, have it this green color. Okay. That's a little bit tricky with these other variables. Mm, yeah, also I'm thinking like, should I have this? Uh, hmm. Maybe also with these numbers, it's okay. Well, they don't have to have hmm, would I just take these out? Uh, hmm. I wonder is there like a good way to somehow separate what's the some kind of result area here to have it because like if I just had before I had this expected population here, and then I have this kind of like area of these cumulative expected outcomes. So I'm kind of like wondering if now if I take this expected population down there, it's a little bit harder to make the distinction between those. If I just have like expected outcomes there. Um, hmm. It's also if I want to keep these arrows somehow, and I have this for this expected population outcomes, I'm like drawing arrows from the survival probability to and this population in case of survival. So this expected population is the is the result. So if I'm drawing that kind of arrow, just like wondering if I need to draw an arrow for this. It's kind of like years. There's this how many years of humanity there's gonna be like in cumulative sense, so that doesn't have anything to do with population. But then again, we have these other cumulative expected outcomes of these human life years and human lives, which again they have to do with this population. I think like one option is also the what if I had this years of humanity, like I could have it even like up here, so there would be this kind of like a result segment there, and then I would have like another I'm also like wondering what if I don't have these arrows at all, because there's this explanation text in the tutorial which kind of like indicate them, but I think for these two top rows, which are it's basically like two variables for the same thing, and it might be useful for the user to understand that, and like understand like kind of like that cumulative survival probabilities is the sum of the, or is like the product of survival probabilities in previous years. So yeah, this is a little bit tricky. So I'm wondering if I change these so that I have the year indicators at this level, so it would maybe make it easier to connect to these variables that are on the same kind of like a line. Okay, here also, if I have this population things, like do I want to keep this yearly growth? And I think that would be beneficial, especially because I have to make or give the user some kind of choice on how does the population progress to like from the previous value to the new value. Is it kind of like a steady growth, or is it kind of like a steady growth in percentage terms, or like steady growth in equal number of people per year? I think the percentage terms is more kind of like natural option, but it should be indicated somehow, and I think it would help to indicate if there's this kind of like a percentage growth per year indicator. Or this indicator might also be just like, okay, I don't know. But again, here it's a little bit tricky with how how small does it need to be? Like if I want to fit big numbers here to have a chance for big growth. I could also have it like below here or here on top. Like I think here would be quite okay, especially if I don't have I could have it smaller. It's got per year. Something like that. It's like a growth rate per year. Mm. Let's see if what would it look like if I had this between here as well. I think it's also good for me to like flesh this out a little bit because I have like a lot of these kind of like inputs that I have here, they are just like an examples for 1 year, and so here we have another example. Yeah, and I'm not gonna have any of this. I'm gonna take these. I'm not gonna have these formulas here because I have so much stuff already going on up here, and it would I think it would just make it more crowded. Okay, if I have, okay, now I understood, like I got like one problem here. If I have this here, then I don't have, do I have the space for, want to have it here actually, because I want to have the space for these indicators of what's the direction of. And this cumulative expected outcomes. It would make sense to have this. And this years of humanity thing, I wonder if this, if I had it up there, and if I then have the population uh, go. Hmm. I think that like one benefit of that would be um, that the user could choose to have choose to ignore these population things and focus just on this existence measures. So let's try out a little bit. So have this. So if we lower this population and I'm gonna have another layer here for this kind of like cumulative existence. Then I'm gonna pick from here. Okay, these are okay. I think I'm just gonna have to. Okay, just take here and bring it here. So cumulative. How would you call it? Cumulative. Cumulative survived. I think it could be like a good to refer to this survival, that because it has been it kind of like ties it better for the previous. So we have here something like 9.9. Like how many? I don't know. Like how far are we gonna go with the decimals? Mm, because it is quite important here in the beginning, but then it's less important in the future. And I'm also thinking like, do we want to have what's the size that we want to have here? And should we have like a specific color? Because I think this could be something that I'm gonna show up on this graph area using maybe some color. And maybe the user can make the connection. Like I'm wondering, like, do I need to indicate here what's the okay? I could have like I think for the first ones it could benefit to have a same number of decimals as we have up there. And it's a little bit tricky to have like this kind of like 4 decimals or something, because it's a little bit awkward number. But I think it helps to connect to that, maybe. Ooh. Maybe I shouldn't have these arrows. Like it's already like it's not so clear if I want to, in some cases, like use this survival probability or I don't know. Mm. So I'm gonna take out those arrows and kind of like see how it looks. I kind of want to have these cumulative results in bigger fonts, but I'm a little bit afraid that it's gonna yeah, I could create some kind of like population zone here below this. I think I need kind of like a lot more colors. I think that's gonna a little bit annoying. Let's see, I would need to have this. Yeah, like what's nice about having this kind of like time scale thing is that it's intuitively easier to understand like, than like how many years are we missing here. But again, here I think the problem again to some extent might be that it is hard to see those small changes. So if you make like a small change there, especially if, well, it might be okay if we keep all the decimals here, like if we continue to keep. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, here with the population, I would like remember like what was the. I think this can be a little bit wide. Not such an issue. But I could have like. Hmm. Let's go. Let's think back about the where do I have the. Okay, here. Everything goes lower a little bit, and then we have this expected population, which is gonna be not very precise level. I was like thinking here, should I have could I have this expected population input to be like in a lot smaller font? Like would it work at all? So let's play around with this idea of if I have everything here and yeah, so these arrows so I'm wanting something like this. So if this it goes to here and it goes to here. And then if we have like a can we have like a population? If I have like arrow in here and then this goes to there. Something like this. Another one, so it is like human lives and human life years. Something like this. And then we would have this arrow here and here. Maybe have like, I don't know. What if this was kind of like indicator? What if it was something like this? So it would kind of like be the start, like arrow that way. I don't know, like an opposite arrow. So like would it work here if I have this kind of thing going on like this, and here if I had like this? So that kind of things. So here it would have kind of like need to so here's a little bit tricky thing with this. Like this would have to go up there, but and here we would have again like this. Or I don't know, some kind of arrow structure. Yeah, there would be some. If I want to indicate this yearly growth rates, but you could use like different colors. It could be like useful to have those those arrow things there. I think it's the same. I think pretty much the same. Maybe font with these. I'm thinking about this like this cumulative survived years issue. I think it's probably a little bit easier even than with this expected human lives. Yeah,